Hi there and welcome to my next video. I hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add animated handwriting to a sprite using my handwriter package. In the previous videos, the animated handwriting was recorded on the screen or on a surface of your choosing. But by using the handwriter sprite class in the handwriter package, you can add animated handwriting to any pygame sprite, which will be automatically updated in the game loop to animate the handwriting at the speed you want. So let's run this demonstration script called sprite demo 0.py, which you will find in the demo folder on my GitHub. Links in the description below. So let's run it. And you can see here that we have a simple grey rectangular sprite, and I'm moving it around with the arrows, and at the same time you can see that there's some animated handwriting on it. And in fact there are some other functions that are built in. For example, I can reset it by pressing R, and then that will cause the writing to start again, and I can continue to move it around the screen. So let's have a look at the demo script to see how this is done. I'm going to close that now. We import pygame and the handwriter package. And again, you need to tell it where to find that package. And this is assuming that the demonstrations are in the same location as you will find them in the GitHub repository. So let's go down to the bottom of the script now, and you can see here that we call the main function. So let's go up and have a look at that. So we set up a frames per second and a screen size. We set a speed for the sprite movement across the screen. I'll come back to this speed change factor in a moment. And we set up the colors that we saw. So that was the screen color, which was some kind of sort of salmon color, the sprite color, which was a gray, and the line color, which was green. And then we initialize pygame, we set up the screen, and we hide the mouse cursor with this statement here. So now we make a container for the sprites, and in this case there is only one sprite, and then for our sprite we need to make an image for it. So we create a surface and we fill that with the sprite color, and then we define some text strings which we want to animate the handwriting of onto that sprite. And there are two options here, and later I'll show how you can easily toggle between different texts. Here I'm instantiating the handwriter class, and so we've got this HW sprite, and it has a number of parameters. So we pass as the first parameter the sprite group. The second parameter is the layer number, and this determines which sprites appear above which other sprites. In this case we don't really care because there is only one sprite, but in the second example I'll show there will be different layers. We pass the image for the sprite, which was just this grey coloured surface, the text that we want to have handwritten on it, which was this text 1, the colour, which is the line colour that it's written in, the size, the line width, and the cursor type, which was a pencil, which we saw. And then we have the normal while running game loop. There's a little twist here. Instead of doing the usual timing with the clock.tick, actually that should be no brackets there, you need to get your tick interval by calling this handwriter sprite.tick method with your desired frames per second. So then we look for user events. If we have closed the window, we return out of this, and then we look at all the key down events. So if the user presses escape, we return out of the main function. And then there's a bunch of other commands to control the sprite and the different functions that you can do with that sprite. So I've set up the keyboard F to change the speed of the writing. and that is done by calling the change speed method of the sprite. And this speed change factor is, as we saw up here, 1.1. So that means that every time we press F, the speed increases by 1.1 times. And if we press S on the keyboard, it'll slow down by a factor of 1.1 times. Then we have the key R to reset the sprite, and that is done by calling the reset method of the sprite, and that deletes all the text that has been written and moves the cursor back to the top of the sprite area. To change the text that's being written, we can call the change text method of the sprite, and all we need to do is to pass into that the new text. And so what this block of code is doing is it's looking for the C key being pressed on the keyboard, telling us that the user wants to change the text, and then it's just toggling between text 1 and text 2. So you could, for example, change the text to any string that you wanted dependent on the state of the game, and that could come from some dialogue system. You can also pause the handwriting by calling the pause method, and you can unpause with the unpause method. And in this example, those are toggled by pressing the space bar, as you can see here. You can also hide and unhide the handwriter sprite using the hide and unhide methods. And here I've got those toggling when the user presses return. The movement of the sprite is done using the get pressed method in pygame, and this enables you to detect multiple keys being pressed at the same time, and then I update the X and Y coordinates depending on the combination of those key presses. So this enables 8-way movement. We can now update all the sprites, which is done by calling the update method of the all sprites container, and we pass in the DT that we saw before. And then I'm doing a crude screen wrap. I wipe the screen by filling it with the screen color. Then I call the draw method of the all sprites container, passing the screen to that, and then I flip the display. I set the caption, which is just displaying the achieved frames per second, and then I check if the writing has finished, and that is done by looking at the finished attribute of the handwriter sprite. If that's true, then the writing has finished, and you can take whatever action is necessary. Here I'm just passing. So let's run it again, and I'll show some of those other keyboard commands. And so here I am moving it again using the keyboard arrows. And so the reset, I'm pressing R now, and you can see it resets. I'm going to press the spacebar, which would pause it. And then I'm going to press the spacebar again to unpause, and then pause again, unpause. So let's now change the text by pressing the C command. So we'll reset it, and now I'm going to press F. I'm pressing F progressively, and you can see it's getting faster and faster. I'll reset that. So I'm pressing S now, and you can see here that it's getting slower and slower. And then I'll press F again to speed it up. So I'm pressing F each time. The speed is increasing by 1.1 times, and it's getting faster, you can see. Let's reset that. And then we had the hide, which was return. So I've pressed return and it's hidden, and it's still writing in the background, it's just not being displayed. And we can move it around, hide it, So let's close this. So now let me open up a slightly fancier example. This one's called sprite_demo. If I run this one, you'll see that this is a bit more fun and probably closer to some kind of dialogue system, for example, in a game. So let's run that. So you can see here we've got this cat moving backwards and forwards from left to right, and that cat is just moving automatically with no user control. I've made no effort to animate anything, so it's just a stationary image moving backwards and actually flipping left to right. And you can see that the cat is having its own dialogue, and that's rendered as these thought bubbles. And in the background, so I've used the layers here, I've got Hamlet reciting his famous speech, "Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him," and I'm able to move that backwards and forwards with the cursor in a different layer. And also on top of that, I've got some rain, and that rain is there to set the mood, but also just to show that I'm able to maintain. You can see up here, this is still running at about 60 frames per second, despite all the handwriting. So I'm not going to dive into the code for this. It's all on my GitHub repository for you to take a look at. It's not any more difficult really, it's just a bit fancier. So obviously I've taken a bit of effort to make nicer graphics and had a few layers and multiple sprites. So the Hamlet character is a sprite, the cat is a sprite, and each raindrop is a sprite. And so obviously I need to set the appropriate layers for those. So you can take a look through the code and get an idea as to how you might want to use this in one of your games. Clearly a dialogue system is an obvious example where you might want to use this. You might want to have a menu in a game which is handwritten, or some instructions just to give a little bit of a personal touch. Because it's very important when you're making games that you do things which stand out a little bit from everybody else's game. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you want to see more content. And if you enjoyed this, please give the video a thumbs up. It really helps. So bye for now.